Well, hello there, just Will here again, and it's day 2, even though it says day 1 in the corner. Game starts on day 0, just to confuse things. So we got the water bottle filler going. I'm going to squeeze past. So that is now up and running. We've got the basic fabrication systems in. We've got a pipe bender, we have a furnace and the coal, well, I say coal generator, it's not a coal generator, is it? It's the solid burner generator thing. And a solar panel. Now, for day 2, what I'm going to start doing, I think, is just literally building out the area. So I want to start working on possibly some filtration stuff, maybe other supplies, but it's basically just starting to ramp things up. So at the moment we don't have a electronics printer, which I would think is probably the next thing I want to build. So electronics printer takes iron, gold and copper, which we already have some. So if I transfer the contents out of this machine, the floor is going to be our storage area. Luckily we don't get any wind on the moon, so should be fine. So let's just bungle these in here. Let's have a look, see if we have got enough to make the electronics printer. Yep, luckily we've got enough to make the electronics printer, so I'll make one of those. The next thing I need to do is start to rearrange these a little bit in preparation for my manufacturing area. It's most likely going to be all outside because of the layout and being on the moon. It's a bit more easier to work outside. We haven't got to worry about storms, things like that. So I'm going to just keep everything outside, keeping it very, very simple as possible. So yeah, again, we're probably going to keep the inside area to a very minimum. Maybe just some living areas, possibly a greenhouse, and that'll be about it. Everything else, manufacturing wise, will just be left outside just for ease and simplicity and speed. So I'll go wait for that to build, and then I'll catch you on a second. There we go, the electronic printer has now been finished. So we've just got to find an area, and I'm probably going to put more frames out of this area just to build it all out. Most likely I'm going to move the what's this called, the lathe, into the middle here, and then to have them in a line, which will work better for later on from when I do my shoot script system. So right, so what I'm going to do, I think I'll move some of these around. There is another job that I have forgotten to do, and I don't know if we've got enough materials now. I need a passive vent because a 3-iron escape, because there is another pipe outlet on here, and that is for the gas. So the ice will produce a little bit of gas when it's being crushed down. So in here at the moment we have 148 kilopascals of nitrogen and a little bit of water in the ice crusher itself. So we don't really have to store the nitrogen, we can just vent it for the time being, just to save us a bit of hassle. But later on we would be better, should we say, to actually start capturing that off and storing that, because we're going to need that for the habitation areas and for plants and things like that. So at the moment I'm going to leave it, let it just build up, it'll be fine, it's not going to blow up anytime soon, but that is something you've got to bear in mind. You don't want to keep running an ice crusher without a gas vent, or basically some way of getting the gas out of that, because it will just keep building up, and eventually bad things will happen. So right, I'm going to just have a quick shimmy around of these, puts a few more frames down, and I'll catch you on a second. There's one thing I just want to demonstrate while I'm deconstructing these. If you have contents in them, don't worry, they don't despawn. You can literally just go through all the layers you have to go through. It's a bit of a faff with these things. Let's see, angle grinder. Wire cutters. Then right at the final step, when you deconstruct it, you'll just be left with the items. They'll just pop themselves on the floor. So it saves you having to worry about just things despawn. Luckily the game doesn't just eat your materials. So now placing out the parts, I've got the lathe here. I'm going to put the pipe bender just behind it, and the electronics printer, which is here, a bit further back here. Now you can see I've kind of started building out a pattern here. This will all make sense much later on. It's more down to how I build out the automated systems later on, because I know what I'm going to do later. So it's up to you how you do it, but this pattern I'm now building out will come in handy later on if you want to use my script that will basically move the ingots from one machine to another automatically. That's not going to be for a few episodes before we get to that, but it's one of those things that it's just future-proofing or getting things ready now. So you start placing things out certain ways because you know what's going to happen. This will be, should we say, you get this more with experience. So the more you play the game, you start to realize, right, I need to do things in a certain way just to make myself or life a bit easier for later on down the road. Just had to do a quick sanity check because I thought the resources used in the auto lathe were equal for the cable in the electronics printer, but it's not. It's the same amount of items, should we say, or resources in a way. So it's 0.5 gram of copper in each cable is made, but it's half the energy in the electronics printer. And this is where you'll find certain things will be more efficient to use in their particular things. The auto lathe is kind of the, should we say, it's jack of all trades, master of none. But there'll be certain items you'll find, like pipes and things like that, will be better than other things. Now, there's one thing you always got to bear in mind. You don't want stuff just keep piling up, because what it does, it starts doing this thing where they start getting just yeeted out of here. And you have to be a bit careful with this, because what will happen is if you build walls here and different things, things start glitching and doing odd things, and before you know it, stuff starts disappearing through the ground and you'll never find it again. So at the moment, this is just happily just flying through the air and just building a secondary pile. It's not going to be the end of the world, but it's just not ideal. So let's turn that off and just pick these all up. You can put in things like stackers, and that would be a good idea, should we say? But I'm not going to bother with that because, again, later on down the road, I'm going to build a chute system where it'll all go to one stacker. So, again, this is me sort of preempting what I'm going to do. And it all makes sense later on. But like everything, if you want to have it organised now, I would say get a stacker in. But if you want to just, you know, live with the chaos a little longer, I'd recommend just, yeah, persevering for a little while and going straight to that. The sun is now setting on day 2, so I'm going to continue on and do a bit more because realistically, didn't really get much done. So I'm going to work through the night now and get the... Probably actually we're done with these machines, they are operational. I'm going to probably now work on the power systems because what we've got at the moment is a very, very basic system. This is going to come out the APC and be moved around, and I'm going to start working on a station battery and a bit more, should we say, a lot more solar panels and things like that. So for the solar panels, we're going to need the electronics printer anyway. And as we're on the moon, if I can spell solar, we can use just the solar panel kit. Not the basic one. The basic one is the flat one, but this one is the tracking one. And this is just going to need gold, copper, and steel. This is the first hurdle we got. Again, steel. So, scratch that. We won't be able to do much in the way of solar panels just yet. We're probably going to have to just persevere and go straight to then the furnace. So this is what we're going to have to build, which is just a little bit of, iron. We're going to grab some iron out. I think I've actually got some on my tool belt. Yes, I have. So I'm just going to smelt these down then. Get them going. And then what we're going to do is work on the basically building up the furnace. The furnace is probably one of the biggest parts of the game. It's got quite a trick to it. There's lots of alloys and things you've got to build and ingots and things like that. These are all mixtures and things like that. We don't need to worry about any of this other than steel. Steel is not complicated, or should we say ridiculously hard to do. Temperatures are fairly easy to work with and the pressure is fairly easy to get up to. It's just again putting in 3 parts of iron to 1 part carbon, which is basically coal. Now, it's not, as I say, it's not a ridiculously hard one to do manually. And things like we'll have to do a oxide and volatiles mix, where we're going to have to literally just chuck in lumps of oxide and volatiles, which are the pink and blue ice rocks we've seen dotted around. I haven't grabbed any yet, but we'll go grab some in a little while. That has now been built. That is perfect. So let's just quickly chuck this together. It's going to take a little while, and hopefully we've got enough charge in that battery. If not, we do have a little bit of coal here. So we'll just have to bear in mind, or keep an eye on this. It's when it goes to orange, I'll be concerned. Red is really getting a bit low. It starts flashing before it dies. This is simply just an indicator to say if it's discharging or charging. Blue means it's on. When it's flashing the red, it means you are taking more power than what it is receiving. And obviously the solar panel's off because it's night time, and the generator's off. This will start flashing green, saying this battery is being charged in here. So if I turn the generator on, I find the switch, this will now start flashing green, which means it is now taking a charge. I'll turn it off for the time being because it's a bit of a waste having it on. But yeah, this is basically all we have to worry about. But this will be switched around soon enough, and we're going to really get into things like station batteries, things like that with solar panel arrays. This is still very, very basic at the moment. Right, that's nearly there with this, halfway through. So I'm going to just get that built out. This is going to need, I think, iron sheets, if I remember rightly. Let's just see if I get a furnace kit. So we need iron sheets. Yep, 4 iron sheets. Easy peasy. So we can make them, well, we already got them, should we say, with the welder. Good to go. Right, let's go wait for this to finish now. There we go, got the furnace up and running. Or say up and running. It's built. It's nowhere near running. So we've got lots of ins and outs on this thing. You see all these little arrows and things. So there is 2 chutes that will be for depositing and, well, ejecting items. I tend to try and build these things with the output on the bottom. If I can get the angles right, it's really fiddly in this game to get these things right. There we go. So that's upside down now, so I want to flip it around like that. There we go. And then do a little bit of like that. There we go. So you can see now I've got the hole at the bottom, which will drop out the items coming straight down. So if I have it like possibly that. Tell a lie, actually, I think I might do it the other way around, actually. Yeah, I think for the moon, it's going to be easier to do it the other way around. So if I just flip it like this, basically, and then we're going to have to put it somewhere where it's not going to get, again, sucked into these machines. I'm going to have to go actually right over here. Let's just flip it around. There we go. So, I think there. There we go. Weld it up quickly. Oh, it's a wrench. There we go. Now weld and torch. There we go. Right. So here's the furnace. We have an open and close handle. This is simply just to eject the contents of this. We've got a little button here which activates it. This is basically a sparker, which will ignite anything that's in there or force melt anything that's in there. We've got a pressure and temperature gauge on here as well. This is the input, which is obviously import, and then stuff will shoot out from there. We have got output and input gas bits here. We are going to need to put in a few extra bits and bobs, because when the gas builds up, it's not going to just sit there and keep warm. It's going to slowly lose temperature. So we're going to have to put in a active vent just to get all the stuff out. So what I need to do on the output is simply just put in a bit of pipe work. If I bring it over here, just be a bit easier to work with. Bring it down. And straight across like this. About there would be a good point. Now already I've got a slight issue with my wiring, so if I do it like this, I think that's probably the best place to put it. Because I don't want to connect on this side of the cable, because again this is my generation side, and at the moment there's no power here. And I really want to have everything that is devices and stuff on the output of the APC, just so it always has power. So I'll wire in this cable, just tap C just to auto rotate round, and there we go. And I can turn it on. At the moment it's set to outward. So when it's this always well, it's a bit confusing in this game. It's the opposite of what the word says, which is a bit confusing, because it's saying if you click this button, it will set it to inward, and if I now click again, it will set it to outward. So we want it in outward, which is blue. That means it pull gas out of the furnace. So all I've got to do now is grab some coal, one lump of coal. We're going to need, actually, we're going to need a bit more space, aren't we, in our backpack. We haven't got a lot of space at all here. So I'm going to smelt this gold down. That gives me a bit more space. And then we're going to need some oxide, some volatiles, and some coal. What I'm going to do is just go quickly gather some of that up. It's fairly easy to find. Coal is just around here. So here's some coal. Oh, well, that would have worked if I had actually put my belt on. If your belt's not on, it doesn't collect. So if you ever get that problem, it's because you haven't got your mining belt on. And then we just need some oxide and some volatiles. Yep, got some oxide. The lovely blue oxide. There we go. There's some oxide, volatiles. So volatiles is the H2. Bit of an odd way of doing it in the game. But basically that's the H2. Well, yeah, and the oxygen is the oxide is the O2. So we just got to hop over here. That is all finished making the. I think it was a little bit gold, wasn't it? Yep, there it is. So I'll pop it into this machine for the time being. So it's out of my way. So we need, luckily because it's dark, we can actually do our split into hand. And for the fuel mix, I need to do, let me always get the ratios wrong, 1 to 2. So 1 oxide, 2 volatiles. So one of those. And there we go, the other hand, 2 of those. Okay, so pop that in there. Click the button. Yep. Pop that in there. Click the button. And there we go. We have now got fire in the furnace. Temperature up to 1.5 kilokelvin. Pressure is slowly rising up to 8 megapascal. 1 megapascal there it is. Right, now, so now we want to smelt some of this down. Now, because I've got this ore mod basically giving me massive stack sizes, it makes it harder to deal with this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to split this in half. Chuck that one in first. Click that a bit just to get it going. Mind you, it's not very necessary. And then I'm going to put in one of these, because I think it's 3 to 1. I always forget the ratios. Let's see. Yep, 3 to 1. So that'd be 75 grams. So one of those, half of that. Pressure is still good, but the temperature might get a bit too low. We need 900 Kelvin. And the temperature's already now... Oh, no, we're okay. 920. So as long as it says there it'll produce steel, you pull the handle, and you're good. If it doesn't say it can produce steel, and I'll show you what it'll do actually, I'll deliberately fail it. So pop that in there. Let's pop in, say, let's just do a couple of these. So 1, 2, those. One of those. Oh no, that one. There we go. So I've not got a correct ratio. You'll see it, contents doesn't say what it's going to produce. If I eject that, I'm going to get what's called regent. I call it regolith, but it's regent. This stuff is basically the contents of what was in here. Now, if that was a bad mix and you just, well, should we say a good mix, but you got bad temperature, you can just put it straight back in and it will come back out again, exactly how you left it, which is great. So if you end up thinking, oh, I got too low a pressure, you could dump it out if you want and bring the temperature back up. You can also just leave the content in here and then effectively vent it out. Out comes all the gas, brings the chamber down, takes a little while, but eventually this will come down to almost 0, and you can then bring the temperature back up a lot more easier if you start off from nothing. When there's contents in the furnace, you kind of have to come over what is basically inertia. You've got a lot of mass in there if there's lots of pressure, and it's harder to get the temperature up higher when there's already a lot of mass in there to heat. So if I get rid of all the gas out of there by adding a little bit of fuel, I can get the temperature up really, really quickly. So once it's down, we'll add some pressure, or we'll add some fuel back in, and I'll show you what happens. The pressure is now down at 0. I'm going to put in the extra iron that we were missing earlier. Ah! This is the only problem. It's not going to process it now. I always forget this. So I now need to eject this all and make an absolute mess. Grab those two out. Because there's no temperature in here, it's not going to process anything. So let's just chuck these on the floor for the time being. And we're going to now go through the same thing we did earlier. Grab 2 of these. Pop it in. click the button, which force melts the ice. Let's do it again. There we go. There we go in the oxide. And as soon as I do this, that bit of oil would get out of the way. There we go. That is now at temperature. And now we can chuck these in. And that should, once the temperature gets up, or pressure gets up, there we go. There we go. Yep, 3 grams of steel. So, and the button also turns green. Eject it. And voila. And there we go. It's still left something behind. I'm not quite sure. I guess the ratios aren't quite right, but hey ho. We've ended up with some random materials left over as well. I just tend to pop it down there. Leave it for later. But yeah, that's it. And then when it's up to temperature, you can just smelt other things in here. So say I wanted another 50 grams of iron, I can just bung it in there. This will work exactly the same as the arc furnace, and it's actually a bit more efficient to do this. Saves you chewing up your power. There we go. Left the handle open, so as soon as it processed it, it just chucked it straight out. That can be handy, but a lot of times you end up making mistakes by doing that. And there we go. One furnace, mostly working. It really needs a fuel line and things like that added to it later on, which we'll go through a bit later on. But for the time being, this is good enough for making steel. So now we have some steel. We need to take all this and take it over to the electronics printer. Turn it on. It needs some more copper and gold. Okay, so we're going to have to do a bit more mining, which is fine. I'm just going to grab everything and chuck it all in here. Even if it's not necessary, it's just better to have everything all in one machine. It saves you trying to find where everything is, and it also gives you a complete stock level of everything you've got in here. So I'm going to need a fair bit more copper, so I'm going to just go out and grab some copper. I think there's some over in this direction, if I remember rightly. So I'll catch you on a little bit. So I'm now back and just chucked my copper into here, and it will still make some ingots, luckily. But the temperature is constantly going to be dropping on here. You'll see it slowly coming down, and that is simply just radiant heat. So the heat is always radiating out. Even though there's no atmosphere here, it's still going to just lose temperature. Same as the water pipe we had in the previous day. So we do have to bear this in mind, that this is going to lose temperature. It's not going to be perfect. So that's now ready. We can get 2 solar panels built, and these are tracking ones. Now, I'm going to leave them just chugging away, because I've got to go find a... Oh, speaking of which, power is now critical. So, let's see, how much battery we've got in here. 6%, that's good enough, but this battery is now pretty much on death's door. Let's just turn on the solar generator. It's going to chew through that coal, but that's not a problem. Yep, that should be fine. I might actually leave it to make an extra one. Oh no, it's 19. Maths. Well, on the morning of day 2, we have 2 solar panels constructed. Just need build and do that. So that'll be the next day's job. So that'll be day 3, even though it says day 2 in the game. We have a furnace up and running, so we can now start smelting down steel and other ores quite efficiently. Save us using the arc furnace too much. And we've got water sorted. And we have 3 manufacturing machines built. So we are really cracking on now. So next day we'll be doing the solar tracking stuff and start getting power into hopefully a station battery if we're lucky. So I'll catch you all then. Bye for now.